Marcia, go ahead.
Y equals 4 and added x plus 1 equals 4 and then subtracted 1 by both sides and got 3.
How do you know that side equals 4?
Miss Goodman, I've never done a.
How do you know it's equal? X is equal to 4.
I just know.
You have to have a reason.
Alright, so she said that those two sides are congruent, so y equals 4, and then she said x plus 1 equals 4, so x equals 3.
No.
Alexis, tell us, do you agree or disagree?
I agree.
Okay, now, here's our question. How come they're equal?
Because of the 3 angles for the K and L triangle, all 3 angles are equal. So it means that all
The line-
angles.
Well, I got 179.
Sides are equal.
You mean all 3 sides? Okay, so mark all 3 sides congruent on the equiangular triangle. So if that one side, all 3 sides. So if that one side's 4, what are all the other sides? 4. So put a 4 by each of those. Okay, hey guys, you should not be talking. You need to be turning around facing the front, paying attention. Okay, so all 3 sides were 4. So that one side was y, so y would have to equal 4, correct? In order for that to equal 4. Now look at triangle LMN. What do you notice on LMN?
Two of the sides are congruent.
Well, 2 of the angles are marked,
Angles.
so which means the 2 sides are. What 2 sides are congruent?
Angle M and angle
So what 2 sides?
LN.
Yeah, LN and LM. So LM would be congruent to LN. Well, if LN's 4, what's LM going to be equal to?
4.
Which
4.
makes
So put
triangle
x plus
4.
1, put it equals 4 beside it.
I know the
And
answer.
then you solve it for x and you get x equals 3.
I know the answer. 4.
No, 3. Y equals 4 and x equals 3. Okay. What questions do you have for me on the bell ringer? Alright, you can go ahead and put your bell ringer away. I need you to get out your worksheet that I just passed back to you because I did not have time to grade it, and I wanted you to have it for today, for today's assignment, and to study for tomorrow's practice test.
There's a practice test on my birthday.
The practice time?
No, I'm not taking it.
We'll tell it together, kids.
Your baby girl hasn't seen us in a while.
Yeah, what did baby girl say today?
Alright, so if I can have your attention, please. You need to be paying attention and making sure you have the correct answers on your paper, so that way when you do the assignment today, you will have correct answers from your notes and your worksheet to go off
We
of.
seriously have an assignment.
Alright, it says, when
Don't be a thug.
alright, please be quiet. When an isosceles triangle has exactly 2 congruent sides, those 2 sides are, and if you would have looked at your notes, you would have seen that the 2 congruent sides on an isosceles triangle was labeled as the legs. Part B, the angle formed by the legs of an isosceles triangle, that's where the 2 legs come together, that's the vertex angle. Part C, the third side of the isosceles triangle is the base, so that's the side that's not congruent, or it could possibly be, depending on which way, if it was equilateral. If 2 angles of a triangle are congruent, then the 2 sides opposite them are congruent.
Yep.
You need to know what opposite means. Okay, so if I have these 2 angles here in this triangle, the side opposite this angle is the side that's not touching this angle. So that would be this side here. So this side is opposite this angle. And this side is opposite that angle. Okay, so that means they're congruent. If a triangle is equilateral, then it is also equiangular. So if all 3 sides are the same, then all 3 angles are the same. And we already know that all 3 angles of an equiangular triangle is 60. Each of these would always be 60, no matter what size it is. Equiangular triangles, the measures are 60. Yes, sir.
What happened to your screen? Was it an art project gone wrong?
It was like that when they brought it to me. All right, part F says xy is 8 and all 3 sides are marked congruent. So if xy is 8, then zx is 8 and zy is 8, and so zy is 8. If y is 60, and these are all congruent because all the sides are, so that means all the angles are, so then z would be 60 degrees. And if YX is 13, then all three of these sides are 13, so XZ is 13.
But what if you like got all of them right?
Then that's awesome.
You're a smart cookie.
All right, turn it over to the back. In your isosceles triangle, the two base angles are the two congruent angles. So these two base angles here make these two sides congruent. So this side would have to be 7 as well. So X would have to be equal to 7. Number 2, here's your two base angles. So here's your two legs. So they would both have to be 6. So X would have to equal 6.
6.
Number 3, these two sides are congruent, so act like this middle side's not here, so that means these two angles are congruent. Well, then these two, now look at the two triangles. These two triangles are congruent to each other, so X would have to equal 6.
Yep.
Same thing with number 4. These two triangles are congruent to each other because you have these two angles congruent, these two sides congruent, these two angles congruent, these two sides congruent, so that makes these two sides congruent, so X would be 4. Number 5, they gave you the vertex angle, and they wanted you to find X, which was a base angle. So I did 180 minus 40 is 140, divide that by 2 and got 70. So the two base angles are 70, so X would have to be 70.
Oh, wow.
Number 6, they gave you one of the base angles, and X represents the other base angle, and base angles are congruent, so X would have to be 75. Number 7, they gave you a base angle. Since these are your legs, these are your base angles, so they would both be 54. So you do 54 plus 54 is 108. 180 minus 108 is 72. So X would have to be 72 because that angle measure is 72. Now, guys, once you find like X equals 72, it no longer has to deal with angle measures and side measures. It's just this is the value of the variable. So you don't put degrees or anything on it when you're finding like X equals a number. Now, if it were to ask you for the measure of the angle, then yes, put 72 degrees. But it's asking for X. So you just put X equals 72, not 72 degrees. Number 8, they gave you a base angle. So the other base angle is 75. So you had to find the vertex angle to find X. And that vertex angle is 30. So X equals 30. Number 9, you had to do quite a bit of work. So if you did not have any work shown, then you did not get credit for that. Okay, so here, these are your two legs, so these are your two base angles. So if this one's 65, this one's also 65. Then you find the measure of your vertex angle, which is 50. Then you use vertical angles to find this angle, which is 50. And these two are your base angles. So both of these are 50. And then you find the measure of this angle, which is 80. So X would have to equal 80. Number 10, they want you to find X, which is a vertex angle, but they didn't give you any of the base angles. So you had to look at this triangle, which was 28 degrees on the vertex, and it makes up this right angle. So you had to do 90 minus 28, which is 62. So the base angle is 62. So this base angle is 62. And then you solve for this angle and get 56. So X equals 56. So it's all just adding and subtracting. You just have to do one step at a time. You have to see what they give you and then mark one angle at a time. Mark it down. Once you find that angle, you can find the next angle.
Is this easier for a visual person?
I would say overall geometry is easier for a visual person.
Yes!
That's good, because you said I was a visual learner.
I'm good to go.
Number 11, this is an equilateral triangle, so I also know it's equiangular, and I know all equiangular triangles, each angle is 60 degrees, so I do 6x equals 60, divide by 6, x equals 10. Number 12, here's a piece of information a lot of people keep forgetting. Linear pairs. Just pay attention, please. You need to have your paper paying attention, making sure you have the correct answers.
I got all the correct
I can't even write this fast.
All right, so on these two angles,
Wow.
they gave us one angle measure, which was this exterior angle. An exterior angle makes a linear pair with an interior angle, so it means they add up to 180. So you got to do 180 minus 125 and get 55 for this angle. these are your legs, so these are your base angles, so they're both 55, and then you find y, that is 70, and then you can find z two different ways. You can either see that these are a linear pair and do 120 or 180 minus 55 and get 125, or you can see it's an exterior angle and that it equals 70 plus 55, which is 125. All right. What questions do you have on the worksheet or just on isosceles, equilateral triangles in general?
Got them all right. I ain't kidding.
I literally didn't miss one.
All right, you're having to use information all the way back from like chapters 2 and 3, along with what we've been covering in this chapter.
What? Hey, don't.
What?
All right, next thing
Is that fine?
for your assignment today.
Let me see it.
It's not on Big Ideas, is it?
It is.
One of them
There's
is.
one and one's a worksheet, but it's also online.
Have you figured out what David Bill said today?
All right, so today, your first assignment, if you would please look up here at the board. 6.3 class assignment, it says, this assignment is due at the end of class today. So you have to submit it at the end of class when the bell rings, no matter if you're finished or not. It is individual. So if you are talking to your neighbor while you're working on this worksheet, I'm going to assume that you're giving them the answers and you're going to get a 0 for cheating.
You're right, Richard. The
You may-
bone, she told you.
You may use your notes. You can also use your worksheet. I can't really tell you how to do it. I may be able to like lead you sort of in somewhat of a direction, but
So is this pretty much a test?
you get to use your notes in your worksheet.
So it's an open note test.
When typing in your answers, use all lowercase letters and do not put spaces whenever you're typing in x equals 2. Don't put any spaces there.
You're kidding.
Okay, so on your worksheet, in the boxes, you type in your answers, all lowercase letters.
What if you don't put it in another way?
Then you don't get credit. Where it says find the value of x, you're going to type in x equals something. Don't put any spaces. Then on the last page, 14 and 15, you got to find x and y. Do x in the first box and y in the second box. Same on 15. X in the first, y in the second. And guys, some of these are tricky, so you're going to have to do quite a bit of thinking. After you're finished, you're going to click finish and then email my answers to my teacher. You're going to type in your first and last name. You are 7th hour, so either put a 7 or 7th hour. The subject's geometry, and then type in my email address, kgoodman@dexter.k12.mo.us. So make sure it has my email address on there,
What
and
if
then
you
hit send.
don't know how to okay.
All right, and then if you scroll back up, it will tell you which ones you got right and wrong, and it will give you your give you your score.
You better study.
Okay. After you have submitted your worksheet, you're going to go to Big Ideas, and you're going to work on Chapter 6 review. Okay. If you don't finish it, it'll be homework, and then you will complete, and then it's due on Friday before the test.
What if you're not going to be at school for the next 3 days?
Then you'll do it as homework.
Okay, I'll be there.
All right, so before you get started on your class assignment, what questions do you have for me? Yes.
Can you play me some mountain music?
No.
Now listen to music on my Chromebook.
As long as you're working